My name is Lex, and this week on Spidey Signals, me and my co-host Alex recap our experience with the Amazing Duology and begin our look at the Spider-Man of the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Captain America Civil War and special guest Fear Deer. Get ready to choose your side, because it's time for Spidey Signals.
Oh, Spidey bells, swinging through Midtown. Oh, what fun to sling a web and take the bad guys down. Spidey bells, quipping all the time. Oh, what fun to swing around New York while fighting crime. Whipping through the streets.
Merry Christmas, and welcome back to Spidey Signals, the podcast where two guys with the same name talk about Spider-Man movies. I'm Lex.
And I'm Alex.
Last week, we got through the nadir of it. We talked about the Amazing Spider-Man 2. We had our first guest on. It was a long episode, but I think it worked out really, really well.
It sure did. We're past it is the thing. We're over the hill now. We're past the hump, or maybe the opposite of a hump, the dip.
We're through the valley of the shadow of death, and now we're into the land of milk and honey. But yeah, this week, first we're going to talk about our thoughts on the Amazing Duology as a whole, and then we're going to move on to talking about Captain America Civil War, and we're going to have another special guest. They're going to be introduced just a little bit later on in the show. But let's open with our positives and negatives for the Amazing Spider-Man Duology. Alex.
Yeah.
What are your positives?
Well, my positives, I tried to put some thought into this, and as much as I thought about it, only the things that I've been saying over these it feels like many, but these few years since these movies came to light, like they're evidence in a trial, since these movies came about and happened. I don't hate Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. It's the eternal debate when you talk about these movies. You have to consider an actor's Peter Parker and an actor's Spider-Man. We've given our thoughts on Tobey, and as far as Andrew Garfield goes, I'm not thrilled with his Peter as much as a lot of people are. But since we're in the positives, his Spider-Man is it's a good performance. It's as jokey as it should be, but at the same time, they pull the serious moments very well, I think. When they don't make him have like a I'm walking here accent for no reason.
Yeah.
It was an interesting take on the lizard, I'll say. We've only seen the lizard attempted once, so we've had two Dr. Connorses. I do like the character being sort of a one-dimensional, like a very comic book type thing. Well, I'm just going to turn everybody into lizards. It felt very, low stakes, low Spider-Man stakes. Oh, it's just the city. They're going to turn a few city blocks of people into lizards. That's a thing we're going to have to live with. It was more of a plan than Norman Osborn had. God bless him. As much as
it was more of a plan, but it was a dumber plan.
True. Well, that's I guess that's debatable. Lizards for everybody, or I'm going to kill specifically Spider-Man because he didn't want to hang out with me. Anyway, I guess that's also the plot of Amazing Spider-Man 2, though, isn't it? Spider-Man didn't want to hang out with me, so
these movies are functionally the same.
I do like Gwen Stacy in this movie far more than I like anything that Mary Jane did in the Raimi movies, and I say that as a big Raimi movie fan. I haven't said a whole lot of damning critical stuff about Raimi, but one thing I have said is that the man cannot write relationships for shit. Now, I know that a bunch of men wrote the scripts for these movies still too, but none of those men were Sam Raimi, and that was helpful for both of the romantic subplots in these movies. They stand head and shoulders above Raimi because sometimes Peter and Gwen, they talk like people in these movies, which is kind of jarring to see in a Spider-Man movie, but not anymore. The effects, I feel like, definitely were an improvement. I feel dirty saying that over a trilogy that John Dykstra worked on, but Spider-Man 3...
John Dykstra only worked on that second one.
Yeah, just the second one. But the third one in specific, I think, the third Raimi has some really shoddy effects for a movie from 2007. And right off the bat, I think both amazing movies had a good blend of, you can tell when he's wearing a physical suit, but versus, seeing like ducking and weaving stuff in CG. it wasn't too uncanny valley at any point that I can like think of outside of some stupid Electro stuff. But that's I'm thinking about Spider-Man here, and we're in the positives. Electro is the last thing on my brain.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything specific else written down. I like a lot of the performances. It feels very unique. The Amazing Duology. And I know that's a lot of people say unique as a almost derogatory word when you can't think of anything else to say about something, which is kind of the position I find myself in. But I don't hate the Amazing Duology as it exists. I'm not a fan of the second movie. I don't know that it's the worst movie I've ever seen in my life, but it's a bad one, and it taints things a bit. But in my head, when I think of the Amazing Duology specifically, I think of somebody trying, but I think it should have been like directors and writers and artists trying instead of suits trying. It's a very, very corporate movie, series of movies, but at the same time, like pre MCU, it feels like trying to figure out the only thing I can think of about these is trying to figure out where to go. And there's only so many places you can go with Raimi, and there's only, admittedly, I think so many places you can take MCU Spidey throughout this stuff. But I think it was an interesting and positive experience that they tried to do something that wasn't connected to the MCU, that wasn't connected to Raimi, and just tried something original. Even if we got the results we got, I think that was a positive thing. Was that unique, fresh start attempt?
It is truly the Frankenstein's monster of movies.
That's all the positives I have for those two. Did you want to go for yours?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of positives. The first thing I'm going to go out with is the costume in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, the Spider-Man costume.
Yeah,
that suit looks really good, and it's the best thing to come out of these movies.
Mm-hmm.
It is very, very good. It's not as good as the costume in my opinion, it's not as good as the costume we're going to talk about in this episode. But it is still really good. They put actual effort into it, which is something that I cannot say about lots of the rest of this movie. I didn't talk about this very much in the last episode. I mostly made fun of the dumb dubstep stuff, but Hans Zimmer does like some of the more classical scores, themes and stuff in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And some of those themes are actually pretty good. Specifically, the one that the main theme that plays. I think the best example of it is at the end of the movie when he's fighting the Rhino. That little triumphant horn theme. I think it's really good. Yeah, it's really nice.
I like Zimmer in doses. I'm a big Blade Runner guy. I like Blade Runner 2049, but I'm actually kind of pissed at Hans Zimmer because like he got the idea, the opportunity to work on Blade Runner, and I feel like that whole score is a little too blah blah, which is a big criticism you hear of him a lot. But it was interesting to hear his take on a Spider-Man theme, and admittedly, I couldn't tell you how it goes right now. But I do remember thinking to myself, well, they tried to do something unique again here that wasn't just the Raimi theme or just, oh, let's do the 60s theme again. Everyone remembers that.
Yeah. You know who they should have gotten to score Blade Runner 2049? They should have got One Tricks Point Never to do it. That shit would have come.
I thought it'd be funny, maybe not funny, but like a good idea to get Daft Punk on board for that, maybe, or at least like Guy Mann or something, who has done film score outside of that. That would have been an interesting take.
Yeah, just get Tomas on there.
Yeah, for sure.
Quips, like I said, Spider-Man is funny, like he should be.
Absolutely.
Toby quipped sometimes, but not as much as I would like. This is inching closer to the Spider-Man that I have pictured in my head, and that's a good thing.
Toby's quipping could feel a little like he's reading a line sometimes. Like, hey, it's me, and I'm doing a quip. Like, he would deliver it just like that. You know what I mean?
I'm specifically thinking of, like, in Spider-Man 2 when they're fighting in the bank, and he, like, catches the bag of coins and he throws it back, and he's like, here's your change! It's like, come on.
Yeah, it's like, read it a little more, like Spider-Man.
It's a little... Yeah, it just it's too goobery. That's my main problem with Toby.
We're out of Goober Peter territory for the most part.
We've moved past we've moved from Goober Peter to Cool Guy Peter, and then next up is just Peter. And the last thing I have is I wholeheartedly agree with you. Character stuff from Gwen.
Mhm.
I do not. I'm going to get into more of this. I do not like the relationship that Peter and Gwen have in these movies, but Gwen Stacy as a character herself is actually really well done.
Absolutely agreed.
It feels it's hard to make a character that is known most for dying. It's hard to make her a fleshed out character.
Yeah,
And they
she's
kind of fumble on it at the end of the movie, Amazing Spider-Man 2. I mean, at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2, but I think that lots of the stuff, mostly just because Emma Stone is a really good actor.
Mhm.
Uh, she gives it her all. She works with what she's given, and I think she does a good job.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Kirsten Dunst still had more screen time in the first two Raimi movies than Stone did in The Amazing. I'm not sure that that's right, but that feels right.
But Emma
Um,
Stone didn't make me want to tear my hair out as much as
yeah,
Mary Jane did in in Spider-Man 2.
she did better with less time, and I think that's what matters at the end of the day.
Yes.
Did we want to share our negatives?
Yeah. Alex, what are your negatives for these two movies?
I'm going to keep it so much briefer than it could be because we have other things to discuss tonight. We have two
Of
whole
course.
episodes if you want to hear me discuss my negatives. Um, I feel like from the top, like I mentioned earlier, these movies feel very corporate. Like a lot of the decisions made were suit decisions. Uh,
Yes.
if you need any context at all for what I'm talking about, go look up the Sony emails that leaked in
Oh,
what
we're
year
gonna
was
talk
that?
about those Sony fucking emails.
What year was
Do
that?
we want to talk about it
Um,
now?
I mean, we might as well. Well,
Okay.
maybe if we save it for an episode where we have some time to maybe not just talk out of for my sake. Maybe I'd be talking out of my ass for a lot of it. I don't even remember what year it was, but they're fucking
Okay.
nuts.
Let's talk about this real quick. So I think 2015, maybe? That sounds right. Uh Sony's emails were hacked and put on WikiLeaks. Uh Sony, the film company. And I'm specifically going to pull up the notorious email from November of 2013 called Spidey Thought. This is
This
from,
was sent from somebody's bathroom on a plane.
oh, you fucking
Just
know
had a
it.
Spidey thought.
This was an email sent to Amy Pascal, who is a high up Sony executive, a Sony producer. She has her own production company. She still works with Marvel on the MCU movies. So she's pretty integral to Spider-Man stuff in producing. But here's the email. I'm going to read the whole thing because it's awful. Okay. Spidey thought, hey, Amy, just a couple of rando thoughts from 35,000 LAX to JFK. So, yes, this was on a plane. A rising trend we see with millennials are the really extreme forms of experimental exercise like Tough Mudder, a sort of filthy triathlon, the Color Run, and even rising things like hot power yoga, veganism, etc. Millennials will often post NBD on their social media after doing it, as in no big deal, also known as the humble brag. Wondering if Spidey could get into that in some way. He's super athletic, bendy, strong, intense, and it's all NBD to him, of course.
God, I want to be dead.
I want to be dead. There's two more paragraphs. EDM, electronic dance music, is the defining music for millennials. Wondering if there's an EDM angle somewhere with Spidey? His movements are beautiful. Would be awesome with a killer DJ behind it. They literally do that at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2. Snapchat just launched a story functionality, which is a sort of day in the life of me told in a series of Snapchats that expire after 24 hours. It has a very VIP quality about it, since invitation only. Getting invited into Spidey's Snapchat circle would be huge, and very buzzworthy, and cool. I want to put a gun in my mouth.
How do they expect any kind of I know this is a fucking out of touch 50-year-old white man writing this, it has to be. But how is there any way, shape, or form he reads that in his head and doesn't go, oh, well, why doesn't a criminal just check the snap map and see where Spider-Man goes at 8 o'clock and figure out, oh, that's fucking Peter Parker. It takes 2 seconds to
Okay.
think of, hey, that's maybe not just shove that in there. Maybe.
Okay. I know this email is taken out of context from a big leak, and that lots of movie producers send shit at random to producers and just to be like, hey, here's an idea, and not all of it makes it out of the conception phase. But back last year when the Disney Sony deal for Spider-Man movies was sort of in flux, and people were thinking that maybe he was going to go back to Sony and he wouldn't be in the MCU anymore. I kept thinking about this picture, which I have titled very buzzworthy and cool.jpg. I thought about it a lot because
NBD.
if we get another movie, if we would have gotten another Tom Holland movie from these people, where these people have creative control, Jesus Christ.
This is the studio that brought you Venom.
This is the studio that brought you Venom and The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and they're like, sure, let's give him Spider-Man again.
Which
yeah, Jesus.
This is all in a roundabout way still a part of my negatives this entire conversation.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to completely derail.
No. That is completely relevant because those people. This is still a few years post this movie, those emails. But with that said, these movies feel very hollow to me in a way that Raimi's were full of like his touch, his charm. You could tell those were his movies he was making. There is no like signifying director trademark touch here. It feels very decision board room. It just doesn't feel the way like an emotionally resonant Spider-Man movie should feel from, writers like Phil Lord and Chris Miller. You know what I mean? It's night and day. It feels bland. It's like fat-free Spider-Man is what it feels like. And it's even there, but the aftertaste is there too.
And even when we get into the next movies, the Marvel movies, Marvel is about compromise within the system. Directors will sign up, and then they'll have to compromise what they do to maintain cohesion within the larger MCU. And
Sure.
that sometimes is a negative thing. But even comparing it to these movies, these amazing movies, you can tell that John Watts as a director has a background in making comedy videos and making comedy stuff, because they're very funny movies. They're focused on comedy. You can tell that that's what they're focused on. I can't tell you a single directorial choice that Mark Webb makes in these movies.
No, not one.
Not one.
Which not to polish Raimi's knob any more than I already have over the dozens of hours of podcasts we already have up here. But like I mentioned, it's those are very much visibly and audibly and emotionally. Those are his movies. You can tell.
Yeah.
People probably went and saw them even though they didn't like Spider-Man because they liked Sam Raimi. There was a handful of weirdos out there. I wouldn't have been one because I would have been like, hell yeah, both. But I don't know. There, like you mentioned, there's just no director love there. There's love, but there's not. They're unique, but they're also, you have to not, being unique's not enough. You have to be original too, and you also have to be good. And yeah, that's a big fat negative right there. I feel like their ambitions for the Sinister Six were more than their capabilities, and I know that goes without saying, but like they really wanted us to know that they were thinking about the Sinister Six with those movies.
They were thinking about it from the end credits of the first movie.
They really wanted it to happen, and it really feels like stop trying to make it happen. If it's gonna happen, like fucking the Sinister Six are gonna happen, but you have to give yourself time for the Sinister Six to show up. You can't. They canceled 4 because 3 had too many villains with 3 villains, and they want to make their third movie with him have 6 villains. They know how that sounds, right? Like it's baffling, and I feel like they realized that and said, "Fuck it, let's shake hands with Disney because we're not making what we made. We're not making money on this now."
I sort of offhandedly mentioned this in the last episode, but they were gonna make a fucking Aunt May a secret agent movie.
Yeah,
and like they're just coming up, they're just pulling random shit out of their asses.
Like
let's do this.
Valley Field, was that gonna be it, or
are we gonna have it? I don't know. Even though the Peter's relative being a secret agent thing is usually reserved for his parents, but we killed them off
like
in the
Richard
last
Parker,
movie.
the
Yeah,
most
like
important
Dick
man
Parker.
in all of Spider-Man lore.
Jesus. Everything else?
I don't have anything else in my negatives that I can quantify and express that I didn't already in our 3-hour grieving session last week. I don't think.
Yeah.
Just to speak broadly and generally, I can't think of anything that makes it a fun movie, a good movie, or most importantly, a good Spider-Man movie. It's just a bad take, and you know what? That's valid because every franchise has a few. There's a few, Schumacher Batman and a few Superman Returns in every franchise, and we were bound and due for one. I think.
Nothing can stay consistent.
I'm just happy that it was in the middle. Chronologically speaking, Amazing 2 is somewhere in the middle of the live-action Spider-Man timeline. If you start with Tobey, or even a little earlier with the 70s or the 90s or what have you, movie-wise at least, number-wise, that's about the halfway point. We've got about 5 MCU Spider-Man appearances, 2 of which are fully fledged Spider-man movies, and
there's the next one coming out next year. This time next year.
So he'll be at that point kind of equal on solo features and appearances in the grander ones, which that's solid to think. He's got his 3. He's already he's
gonna have his 3.
He'll end up having the most, I think. In the end,
God willing, he'll be in more.
Yeah, for real. Sony, you better fucking play nice. That's all I have to say.
Do not fuck this up.
But that's generally speaking all I have to say that I haven't already said.
All of your negatives, because then after that we're gonna go into our final thoughts real quick. Yeah, for my negatives, I want to keep it quick as well. First off, gross misunderstanding of both the origin of Spider-Man and Peter as a character in general. Peter should not be destined to be Spider-Man. That's not how this should work. You fucked up immediately. His dad shouldn't matter. Who gives a shit about his dad?
About Richard Parker, the
Dick Parker,
greatest scientist of our time, apparently.
Dick Parker should not be more important than Uncle Ben. It's like, what the fuck?
He's the Spider-Man, but this movie should be about the Spider-Man.
Yeah, oh my god. All right, I got some more things. This movie, I feel like more has it in the first movie, but these movies have like a grimdark edgelord tone that doesn't really feel genuine at all.
Definitely agree with you there. It's coming off the heels of like one of the horror directors like of our times, like trilogy of these, and these are the grim, edgy ones.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to appeal to the hip, cool kids, and they fail spectacularly. And I feel like it comes off more in the first movie because the color grading is so dark, and because Peter's origin is mostly revolving around him going on a dumbass revenge quest. It's like it doesn't feel genuine at all.
He's a creep in the first movie, and that really hurts the movie. It's one thing to have like Tobey be angry and let a criminal go, and have him fall through a window and die, I guess. But his revenge quest in the first movie is so bizarre, and it's even.
And then he doesn't
bizarre.
even catch him.
Never wrap it up. He just put the hurt extra on all these bad, fucking random ass basic level 1 street thugs for no reason. He was a bad guy briefly. He's the kind of guy he would have been beating up 6 months later.
Yeah, the origin of Spider-Man should not be hard to get right. And the origin of Spider-Man is so well known that you could probably easily just skip it and people would understand it.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll ever do that in a movie.
I wonder if they'll ever do that.
Story.
And I wonder if people will get mad about it anyway.
My answer is it's going to be yes, I think, because the internet.
Yeah. What else do I have? Inane writing for every character. I hate every scene of dialogue in any of these movies.
Yeah,
the dialogue is just awful.
It really bottoms out when Peter and Harry meet and catch up at the river.
And they catch up.
It really
does. I've said this before, but I said it, I think back in the Spider-Man 3 episode where we were talking about Peter and Harry like going to junior varsity basketball. But it reminds me of the Star Wars prequels, where you're constantly reminded, especially in Attack of the Clones, where you're constantly reminded of, oh, remember all these wacky, crazy, fun adventures we went on? Oh, weren't those great? Oh yeah, it's like that's not good dialogue. That just makes me want to watch something other than the movie I'm watching right now.
Exactly.
And I have one. I wrote focused. Yeah, focus more on setting up the other movies instead of telling a good story. I agree with you. And the last thing I have is the costume in the first movie. God, fuck
Yeah.
that costume.
It looks like it's made of basketball, like skinned
It's a basketball.
basketball.
I've seen people argue like it doesn't look like a basketball. I'm like, yes, it does.
It looks like a human skin suit dyed.
It looks like it smells like a PVC kickball.
He would reek weeks of swinging through like New York, sweating his ass off, punching people.
How would you wash that?
You see this leathery, stinky man in front of you going, "I'm the spider. I'm going to get you."
How do you wash that costume?
Tattoo on your hand. Apparently not with other clothes, because Aunt May will fucking kick your ass and be the laundry Nazi.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Sally Field's Aunt May.
All right, let's get through really quick with our overall thoughts on this series of movies. Alex, throw them out there.
Well, I think my overall thoughts. I wish I had written something for this, but I'm coming on this fresh from work. But however, I now, having seen both, I'm now sorry to say I'm intimately familiar with the Amazing Spider-Man duology, where I was not at the beginning of this podcast. So I want to thank you first for accompanying me on this journey, Lex.
Yeah, I've said this before. I hadn't seen the first one since the theater in 2012, but I just recently watched the second one, and yeah, not fun. But I'm glad I had somebody to endure the pain with.
My overall thoughts are that while the sting is there and while the hurt is there, that they chose to do this instead of give Sam Raimi his golden second chance opportunity that now it seems Disney and Marvel have decided to give him tangentially.
Yes.
I think Sony got so caught up in the can we that they didn't think about the should we, and they pulled the trigger on the ruination of a character and an idea and a story. They threw away so much money making these movies. I had a conversation earlier this year with a friend that played out in real time so funnily I can't make it up. We watched Howard the Duck together about 2 months ago, a couple weeks before Halloween. Me, my brother, his roommate, just a little socially distant movie night. We watched Howard the Duck and had a couple drinks. And I said during the movie, "This is somebody's favorite movie." And my friend Brian said to me, "No, it's not. It can't be. This is not somebody's favorite movie." I said, "Numbers wise, it has to be. Percentage wise, there's a non-zero chance that someone out there unironically says, 'Oh yeah, Howard the Duck, it's my favorite movie.'" The next week, Howard the Duck was trending on Twitter because some NFL player tweeted without context, "Howard the Duck is my favorite movie." And people were surprised. And he was like, "No, straight up, that's my favorite movie." And Brian was completely flabbergasted. He's like, "No, you were right. That's somebody's favorite movie." I say all of this on my Spider-Man podcast because Amazing Spider-Man 2 is somebody's favorite movie out there. That's somebody's Citizen Kane. Somebody cheers and cries when they watch that movie.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this right now. I don't mean to interject into your point, but
no,
I am a Patreon. I'm a patron of a podcast called 70mm. They're a movie podcast. They're very, very good. I like listening to them every week. But one of the rewards is you get to listen to them live while they're recording their episode. And I called in. You can also call in, and they'll show up in the voicemails of the episode. And I was talking about, I made an offhand reference about how I wasn't able to call in earlier a couple weeks ago because I was working on this podcast. And I was talking, and one of the hosts was a man named Slim. Shout out Slim. Shouted out the podcast. So thank you very much, Slim. But then he also talked about how our most recent episode was The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And as it turns out, one of the other hosts of that podcast, a great artist named Danny Haas, it turns out that he gave Amazing Spider-Man 2 3.5 stars on Letterboxd, and he really enjoys the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. He likes them more than the MCU movies. And I vehemently disagree with that on principle. But it is very interesting to see how these movies connect to people.
Yeah, it really is. It's somebody's favorite out there. It's a 5 out of 5 for someone, for more than one person statistically, I think.
There's another person I follow on Letterboxd that gave this movie 4 stars when it came out.
I don't think I have rated this on Letterboxd yet. I've been slacking. Man, I got
and then later on they ended up giving Homecoming a 3.
Okay, all right. That's some logic that I'd love to hear explained to me.
I don't know.
But these movies seem like a waste of everybody's time. They seem like a waste of everybody's money. They seem these two movies feel like such a monument to nothing. It feels like a big square statue with no plaque and no inscription. It's just there. And we look at it and we talk about it and we remember it, but we don't like it. And we don't love it. And when we think about memories of it, it's, hey, remember when it replaced that other thing? You know?
It's like the film version of that limestone block that 9gag inscribed with a bunch of dumbass memes and buried in the desert.
Yeah, imagine
it's big, it's ugly, and it makes you embarrassed to look at it.
The goal of any piece of fresh, new, no restrictions, let's tell the story from the beginning Spider-Man media, I think, in my head anyway. If they handed me the reins and said, do a new origin story, but make it good, I would want it to be something that's so good you can show it to a first-timer and say to the first-timer, this one's good to start with. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And this is where, not just where you should start, but this is where you can start. And these movies are not those movies. These movies go nowhere and do nothing, I think is my final verdict. I don't hate them. There's worse superhero movies. There's worse Marvel superhero movies. There's so much bad shit out there that I'd rather watch Amazing Spider-Man 1, I guess, before some of them, but I just have no interest in watching the second one. Like probably ever outside of like maybe some kind of bad movie night in the future, because I've seen the Room fucking dozens of times. I've seen Neil Breen.
Well, that's because The Room is an enjoyable movie.
I would love to watch Neil Breen's cut of this movie. Is what I would love to see.
Double Down is fucking genuinely awful. Like it's not even funny bad.
Movie. That's Richard Parker's backstory is Double Down.
Is he Double Down? Oh my god, yeah.
The laptops and everything.
Jesus, eats tuna. All right, here are my overall thoughts. I agree with you. Sony was completely lost in the sauce on this one. They were so caught up in trying to outdo the Raimi trilogy and keep up with the MCU that they pretty much squandered any potential that they had with their genuinely pretty talented cast. Yeah, with the Raimi movies, I had a lot to talk about, but these movies just make me feel hollow. I've said it before. I said it in the last episode, but The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is maybe not the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's certainly the most insulting. I would gladly watch fucking Thor 2: The Dark World. I would watch that rather than watch The Amazing Spider-Man 2, because The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is better in a lot of like technical and script-wise ways, but it doesn't insult me as a person and as a person who likes Spider-Man.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. They really did my boy Christopher Eccleston dirty in that movie.
Yeah. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is basically like getting a gift from somebody, like a nice wrapped gift on Christmas when this episode is coming out. You take off the wrapping paper, you open the box, and then a giant fist comes out and punches you right in the balls. That's what these movies are.
Yeah, close to it. Very close.
They're not good. Anyway,
I cannot say I recommend them, but I can say I recommend the next one, a good one, which isn't even a Spider-Man movie.
Let's transition into that. So 2015-ish, 2016, Sony was like, fuck it, we give up. They ended up firing Andrew Garfield under very suspicious circumstances, which was kind of odd. Do you have anything to say about that, Alex?
It's the eternal debate of, good actor, bad actor, good dialogue and script, bad dialogue and script. Personally, I think an actor can only do so much with what they're given. I think that's the whole Hayden Christensen paradox, if you want to call it that. I'm not sure. But where Garfield's performance was stilted, you could tell it wasn't because it was his own personal choice to play Peter Parker as a New York City garbage man in the second movie, like accent-wise. That was a studio thing. It had to be. And for some reason, somehow you can do your job as an actor and kowtow to the studio and still catch the shit for the studio's decision. So I think firing was the only inevitable thing, because I don't think he wanted to quit being Spider-Man.
No.
He has this whole quote about how he was never Spider-Man. He was an actor playing a role. That's a thing. Like, if you Google what he had to say, he says "fuck" a lot at it. He was pissed.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, I remember reading lots of articles, like things were swirling around a lot, that Andrew Garfield made comments about how about like, oh yeah, sure, Spider-Man could be bisexual or like whatever, just like random offhand comments. And then Sony just got really mad about it, and so they sacked him.
And then 10 years later made a movie about how anybody can wear the mask. Okay.
Yeah, fucking Sony is run by a bunch of ghouls. I think we've
Next
already
week,
established
we're going to have
this.
Amy Pascal on the podcast to talk about Spider-Man Homecoming.
Again, like I said last episode, I really hope that he shows up in the next movie or in some other movie, in some other form. I want him to have his redemption arc. I want him to be in a good movie because he really deserves it.
You'll hear about it from us first, folks.
Yeah. So Andrew Garfield is sacked. Sony says, fuck it, and signs a deal with Disney that Spider-Man will be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They did have... so this is a very interesting place that we're entering the character in, because normally in the comics, Spider-Man is one of the first characters to show up. It's like Fantastic Four, Hulk, and then Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. That's usually the first three to show up. But this is really different now, because this is like coming into a world that's already been established for like 8 years.
Oh yeah.
And we're like, oh hey, we have to... So they make a lot of changes to the character that I think are done really well, but lots of other people do not think are done well.
Yeah, and not only that, but they also do so much different with it that, like, it's been X amount of years since he's been introduced in the fold, and we don't know the specifics still of his, like, origin and what happened. And that's fine.
And that's fine.
Works. It just works.
I like to imagine that comic book fans are sort of like they're like infants in that they don't have object permanence. If they don't see Uncle Ben die right in front of their faces, they just pretend it doesn't exist.
They love breaking the fourth wall so much they expect it to break, and when it doesn't, well...
We are definitely going to get more into this next week when we talk about Homecoming, but there are a lot of arguments that people make about these movies that I think are dead fucking wrong. But anyway, before we get into that, I would like to introduce our second guest. As I said before, they're a streamer, they're an artist, they're a longtime friend of mine. Yeah, it's Fear Deer.
Hey, I'm not a big Spider-Man fan, but I'm here.
But you're here because I know you like Captain America.
But I'm here for the important. Yeah, no. This is kind of like my first foray into really knowing anything about Spider-Man at all, which is interesting. I'm like learning from the podcast, but now I'm on the podcast, so it's that kind of podcast, which is very exciting.
I could be on the podcast too, listener. Just send us an email or something.
Yeah, to the PO box.
Please send us an email. We haven't gotten any. I'm so sad.
I'll send a fake one in.
Mm-hmm.
JohnQCitizen@gmail.com.
I'll send you up for some of my spam lists. Don't worry about it.
All right. Let's talk about Captain America: Civil War. This movie was released on May 6th, 2016. It was directed by Joe and Anthony Russo, who are most known for directing quite a few Marvel movies. It was written by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, which do not sound like real names. They are mostly known for writing the other Captain America movies, but they also wrote the Michael Bay movie Pain and Gain, which I really want to see.
Is that the arm wrestling one, or is
that's the one with the Rock and Mark Wahlberg?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to see that. All right. As for our cast, we got a lot of slashes here. So get fucking ready. This is not everybody. I just picked like 10 people. All right. We got Chris Evans as Steve Rogers / Captain America. Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark / Iron Man. Scarlett Johansson as Natasha Romanoff / Black Widow. Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes / The Winter Soldier. Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson / The Falcon. Chadwick Boseman, the man himself, as T'Challa / Black Panther. Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda Maximoff / Scarlet Witch. Paul Rudd as Scott Lang / Ant-Man. Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. And the man of the hour, Tom Holland, as Peter Parker / Spider-Man. The music is by Henry Jackman, who is an apprentice of Hans Zimmer's. I think the things that he are mostly known for is he scored Wreck-It Ralph, and he scored the Kick-Ass movies, and he also did the score for Uncharted 4, the game, which is kind of weird.
Uncharted, little Tom Holland connection.
Oh yeah, because he's in the Tom Holland movie.
He's in the new Tom Holland movie. Well, the guy that directed Child's Play was named Tom Holland, so there could be a Tom Holland movie.
Yeah, he also directed
Tom
The
Holland.
Langoliers. Have you ever seen The Langoliers? It's directed by Tom Holland.
I know enough about it to know I don't want to see it.
Of course. This movie had a budget of $250 million, so actually less than The Amazing Spider-Man 2, if you can fucking believe it.
Really? What did I say about it being a waste of money, dude? What did I say?
But this movie had a box office of $1.15 billion as of the recording of this episode, the 12th highest grossing movie of all time. So, Alex, do you have any personal experiences with this movie?
I sure don't, as a matter of fact.
I was so ready. I'm like, I'm so excited.
This movie came out at a weird point in my life where I was 20 years old. I was not overtly into comic books the way I was stuff like role-playing games or Star Wars or other long time like dorkier interests of mine. Comics kind of fell by the wayside for me and movies by extension, stuff like that for a bit. I didn't get back into Spider-Man, like with a capital IS into Spider-Man, till about the time Homecoming hit theaters. I was nervous at the concept of another new Spider-Man, because that's what it was at the time. It was oh god, another new one, and this one's a kid. Oh fuck. Oh god.
Did you watch Civil War before you watched Homecoming?
Yes, of course. I went out of my way to like watch the first cam rip I could once it came out, and I had heard, hey, it was good and it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry.
It's fine. It's good. I promise.
I sat down and like made my fiance watch the airport sequence because I was like, hey, look, it's Spider-Man. It doesn't suck. It's fine.
I feel like there's lots of people who haven't seen these movies but have seen Homecoming, and that explains why they feel the way about that way that they do about that movie.
Oh, sure. Yeah. This helps. It gives a lot of context. Not much, but as far as personal experience, no, I did not see this movie until a few months after it came out. Wasn't looking forward to it specifically. I was dreading it a little bit, just based on the idea of, okay, it's all new. Here, this is going to be in the public eye. This is the future of it for the next decade at the least. So let's buckle in. And no, it was fine.
That was fun.
That's about where the end of my personal experience is. Yeah. Did you see this in the theater?
I did see this movie in the theater. I remember seeing the trailer for this movie, the one where they show off Spider-Man. And then, because before that, I didn't really care about Spider-Man, especially after Amazing Spider-Man 1. I just tuned out. And then 2 came out, and I heard that was horrible, so I didn't watch it. And then they're like, oh, he's going to be in these movies now. And I didn't really care about the MCU beforehand. I liked Guardians of the Galaxy and like the first Avengers. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. And then they're like, oh, did you know Spider-Man's going to be in these? I'm like, huh? And then I went to go sit in the theater, and I thought that it was good, mostly because Spider-Man was in it. King, I know you like Captain America. I'm aware of that. So do you have any personal experiences with this movie?
I know I saw it in the theater. I have literally zero recollection of seeing it in the theater, but I know I was there. I I will say this was my first time seeing Spider-Man, like in any film, because prior to this, all I had ever seen of him was like back when the I think Raimi movies and stuff, and a bunch of them were on TV, like way back in the day. I'd see like 5 minutes at a time. I remember my first time I ever saw Spider-Man was the upside down Tobey Maguire kiss, and I remember just seeing that for like 3 minutes on TV, and I was like, I don't like this, and then I left. But
that's good. That's really
yeah,
good.
I was like, I remember knowing that Spider-Man was going to be there because I didn't see it exactly at release. And I was very, very pleasantly surprised the first time I saw him, because it also felt a little weird to me that he was going to be in the movie, because I felt tonally, especially with just what they were doing with the story, it was supposed to be a darker movie, but my God, it was really good. Like, I liked Spider-Man after I saw him in this one.
Yeah. These movies, I've said this before, I like these movies. I think they're good.
Yeah, they're good movies.
A lot going for them.
Yeah. Alex, do you want to segue us into the plot of this movie?
Absolutely. Typically, as you know, if you're a regular listener, I usually watch the movie, and I'm familiar enough with these to get a really, really, truly in-depth plot description going. But we're playing it a little funny this week. We've had a string of long episodes in a row, and it's also Christmas. So in the spirit of just speeding things up just a little bit, my synopsis of the non-Spider-Man parts of this movie are just a bit more concise than usual. We're going to be talking in a little bit broader strokes until we get there, but we're not going to, squeeze too much detail out. This is still the same podcast you may or may not tune into every week. So the movie opens with a flashback of Bucky, the Winter Soldier, doing some nefarious shit. He's cruising alongside a car, kicks at it, crashes it, and steals some shit that looks like blue Kool-Aid jammers. And we get a cut to present from 1991. The Avengers are in Nigeria, tracking Crossbones.
They're in Lagos, maybe. I don't remember.
They're in Lagos.
Yeah. Crossbones is doing some, cool guy, private military, bad guy shit after Captain America dropped a building on his face at the end of Winter Soldier. They're trying to. His crew is stealing this like vial of a contagious virus. It's a very very easy plot MacGuffin, but it they're not going to do anything like that ever again now. There's a very extended chase and fight sequence. Your typical like Avengers movie opening type shit.
I think this action sequence is fun.
It's pretty fun for that, but it's very, very disconnected. I feel from typically what they were supposed to be doing, but yeah.
It's I like it. I like seeing everybody work as a team. I think the shaky cam. There's lots of shaky cam in this first fight scene. It's a little jarring.
A lot of
it's not great.
But
I've never been the biggest fan of Marvel's action choreography, but this is a little
later in the movie. There's some really, really good stuff that I went out of my way to mention. But the beginning is not overtly impressive. Maybe some of like the takedowns from Black Widow and stuff, but outside of that, it's very normal.
Yeah.
So after extended chasing and fighting, Crossbones attempts to suicide bomb Captain America after like Bucky baiting him. Like
got Bucky baited.
Yeah, that's the only way to put it, I thought. But being a tactical genius, Wanda kind of lifts and casts him up and takes out a building with him instead, and kills 11 civilians instead of Captain America.
She could have moved him slightly to the right.
For some reason, she struggles very hard with this one explosion, even though she's done that several times before.
It's been forever since I've seen Age of Ultron, so I have no clue what she does in that movie.
She's like incredibly powerful. has done that all the time, but for some reason she completely fucks her shot up and just puts it right through the wall.
She just moves him straight up.
Oh no.
She had a song stuck in her head and she couldn't remember what it was, and she was thinking really hard about it, and whoops. So this ends up kind of plunging the Avengers into like an internal affairs like struggle from here on out. After this, maybe kind of alongside this, Tony Stark is doing his little like CGI session in front of the entire graduating class of MIT, which would make me feel incredibly like uncomfortable. Like, I know they get grants and stuff in a minute, but like, can you imagine sitting there and Elon Musk like making you relive his childhood traumas in VR in front of you on stage? And you're
just so like, fucked up.
And this was the last time I saw my parents.
I just want my fucking diploma, dude. I just want to leave.
I just want my money, please.
Money, me?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. He does his little "I miss you, Dad" thing in front of everybody.
I do like that he says that the hologram stuff is like super expensive and also really dangerous. I hope that won't ever come back in a future movie.
It's fun that they set it up and then it's supposed to be some nothing thing, and then no, it's like, hey, we have this thing from the last movie that'll work for
wink, wink.
Somebody. Who knows? Maybe some guy.
I sure hope Jake Gyllenhaal isn't involved with any of this.
It's weird to me. If I'm not mistaken, a lot of the Pepper and Tony breakup thing is done mostly like outside of movies, and they're just kind of back together they kind of just get back together at the end of Homecoming a little bit, and then it's just
the only MCU movie that I haven't seen is Iron Man 3, so that's like my blind spot.
I want to say they're together in that. I saw it recently because we watched the whole MCU again with my mother-in-law last year, or maybe it was at the beginning of quarantine. Oh my god, that might as well have been last year. But with that said, no, I'm pretty sure they were together in that one. So who knows? Pepper and Tony, it's hard to feel like give a shit about that sometimes.
She's off selling her pussy-scented candles.
Exactly.
A jade egg or something. But once Tony does his little, philanthropy thing, he takes the I don't want to talk to you guy from Community elevator out of here, and gets a nice personal like, hey, go fuck yourself from what's her name? Is that what's the actress's name? She's in 2 MCU things. She's in Luke Cage as well.
I cannot remember what her
name is. I'm blanking completely.
Can't remember her name, but she's in 2 MCU projects concurrently, which I think is always fun to point out and note. But she gets some really serious like, hey, Tony Stark, shut the fuck up in this movie, which is always great to hear because I wish Tony Stark would shut the fuck up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I like this scene because they really put, just in the MCU in general, they put a lot of effort into making Tony like not a complete asshole like he is in the comics. Right. And I think it pays off pretty well. They play a lot into like his guilt and his trauma, which is cool and good, and I think it's well done. But there is a line that lady says where she is like, my son, like it's a good like speech that she says, and it really hits home. But then she immediately follows it up with, my son is dead and I blame you. And it's like, yeah, is that really necessary?
Yeah, he got that.
It's a little
I think kind of, yeah.
Yeah, that was dramatic. That was on purpose. But like, yeah. I you'd think it was cheesy, but I love the line, who will avenge my son?
Like he kind of already did. He beat Ultron.
Yeah, but he also made Ultron, so
it is true.
It's a collar tug there. But from here, the Avengers are kind of having a nice. It reminds me of a family Thanksgiving. They're like sitting around the table discussing the ethics of signing the Sokovia Accords, and everybody's like afraid to voice their opinion because they think it'll piss off half the room. And it's a fun scene of seeing like these gods amongst men squirming like us with like conversation anxiety.
Yeah. I think the central character conflict between Tony and Cap, I think it's well done. But like the actual Sokovia Accords, like the law, it's kind of dumb, and they eventually just drop them from the movies. Like they never reference them again.
Yeah.
The actual Civil War comic, I think, does a much more detailed and better job of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, because it's like Tony ends up hooking up with Spider-Man, like just like, hey, come help me, and like I don't think Spider-Man's registered with the government.
No, definitely not. And in the comics, there's a lot more stress on, because it's the extended Marvel universe, but like X-Men and stuff are there.
Yeah,
and in the comics,
the X-Men are involved in that, and that's a whole different can of worms.
Yeah, exactly. It's a whole thing, and in like you're right, in the movies, it's a really kind of oddly structured, weird sort of, oh yeah, we all have to be held accountable, so let's just bow to the UN because they're the greatest force on the planet Earth for some reason.
Yeah.
Which is like it's a weird bridge to that. The internal conflict, I think, with Tony and Cap, it's definitely been something that they leaned into for a few movies. Makes a lot of sense. It's really well played out, but the actual causality of it is just a little acidine altogether.
Do you have anything you want to say, Alex?
Yeah, what I think of at the end, it all came down to is we have X number of characters and we need to split them evenly in half. So we're gonna say, like, character motivations be damned. What does this person believe? What does this person believe? Because we need an even cool fight to put at the end of this and put in the trailers. That's what it really is.
But yeah, even if the Sokovia Accords were dumb, I do think that central conflict is well established and well fleshed out and good.
Absolutely, they had kind of been building it for a while.
Yeah,
and it pays off decently. That's how you do these things, Sony. Take note, please, God, please.
Please, God, what the fuck?
I like to think there's some Sony executive listening to this podcast and having to report to Avi at the end of every week.
It's like fucking Emperor Snoke. He's just sitting there. He's like, "What do you have for me?"
They talked for 3 hours about the Amazing Spider-Man 2, my liege.
I feel their anger and I feed off of it.
Oh my god. So Cap has to leave the Suckfest early because he gets a text saying that Peggy has passed away from chronic old lady-itis.
That his big titty goth GF is dead.
Completely dead.
And then he realizes that that his niece is Agent 13 that had been helping him previously in his career. See the Winter Soldier, which we will not cover on this podcast because it has no spiders and no Spider-Men.
No men.
It has men, but it doesn't have spiders.
but no
so lots of men in the Winter Soldier.
Oh my god, so many.
It might be the most masculine of these movies.
Lots of heated drama between men in the Winter Soldier.
Breaking: Chris Evans fired for saying Captain America could be bisexual. Maybe.
No, my god, no.
Natasha tells Cap that she, Tony, Rhodes, and Vision are signing the Accords, and that they're going to be ratified in Vienna. There's going to be a whole ceremony, and that he should be there, which he is not there for. At the ratification in Vienna, some bad shit happens, and a big bomb goes off and kills. What is he? He's the king of Wakanda?
Yeah, he's the king of Wakanda.
He's the king.
Kills T'Challa's, new introduced character here. We get Black Panther finally in his big screen debut. His dad gets killed in front of him instantly. They don't give us more than like fucking 10 seconds together before they'd go, okay, here we go, tragic backstory time. It's implicated that Bucky is the bomber. And that's no good. Can't have that.
I will say, Chadwick Boseman in this movie is really fucking good. I think he's better in this movie than he is in the Black Panther movie.
I was gonna say the same thing. I was gonna say that. Yeah, he. Everyone gets really excited about Spider-Man being in this. They get excited about the fact that it's Civil War. Personally, I remember seeing this and going, "Okay, wow, they made Black Panther like interesting for the average moviegoer. He's not just
Spider-Man and Black Panther are the two best parts of this movie."
100%.
I completely agree. Yeah, absolutely. Which is bizarre, but it works.
Black Panther definitely has all of the best lines, hands down as well.
The Russos have a little bit of like that thing that makes Jon Favreau want to work with you. I think. You see Dave Filoni as well on this list.
Triple sauce. Yeah.
I just think that they they're not God's gifts at directing or anything, but they get the Marvel formula and they know how to milk it without completely making it suck and making you just sit there and feel like you're like soy wojacking the whole time. You know what I mean?
You're consuming.
Yeah. I trust the Russo Marvel project almost more than any other one. Maybe Peyton Reed or Watts being a second
or John Watts, yeah.
One.
John Watts is doing the fucking Fantastic Four movie, which I'm excited about.
That's gonna be something. I'm cautiously optimistic.
This is going to be the third time they try to do the Fantastic Four, and I hope that they do not fumble the bag on this one.
Comics first family.
I'm going to say this right now. If you make John Krasinski Mr. Fantastic, I'm going to kill someone. I do not want that motherfucker to be Mr. Fantastic.
Nope.
Emily Blunt, Invisible Woman, I'm totally fine with that. But if you make John Krasinski Mr. Fantastic, Kevin Feige, I'm going to come to your house.
This is going to be used as evidence in 5 years.
This will be in a court case.
There's going to be a bloodied baseball cap.
When Krasinski wins Best Actor for Mr. Fantastic at the Academy Awards in 2024. Anyway, Bucky now knowing that he's a publicly wanted man, he's confronted by Cap in his little bungalow, and the two end up fighting off like an Interpol arrest. This is some of the choreography I was talking about. There's even better stuff later, but a lot of the specifically a lot of the stuff where Cap gets to use his shield in this movie, I always like seeing how they write ways for him to use it. There's a lot of hallway fighting here, a lot of close quarters stuff, and it's I like it a lot. It's
yeah, this scene when they're running on cars and shit. It's awesome.
Yeah. There's another chase sequence. There's so many chase sequences in this movie, but Black Panther and Falcon also begin chasing each other and the pair kind of at the same time. Very lengthy fight, very lengthy chase that ends with Captain Buck being apprehended. Black Panther gets unmasked immediately also, so we get backstory out of the way, secret identity out of the way. This guy's Black Panther now.
I like to think that he just doesn't give a shit.
He 100% flexing because he knows. I think the explainer for that one was he's royalty, so they can't arrest him.
What are you gonna do? Prosecute me?
Yeah.
Well, that's. I think that's the comic.
What are you gonna do? Guillotine me? I'm the king.
I was gonna try to gut my father's murder in the street. What are you gonna do about it? You gonna shoot me?
Germany can't do shit.
You gonna hit me with that bat?
I'm technically not a superhero. I'm a police agent of my own nation.
Yeah, I'm the commander-in-chief of these guns right here, he says.
Literal one-man army.
Bucky is detained in like a cage while the others are grilled by S.H.I.E.L.D. about their actions.
Yeah, they put him in a little pod on a forklift, which I think is really funny.
Yeah, the Incredible Supermax that they had built special for him.
While they just let Cap like sit in a t-shirt.
Yeah.
They're like, "You are so bad," and they wag their finger at him, and we're gonna leave for a minute. Don't do anything. While they do that, Wanda is imprisoned at Avengers headquarters. Imprisoned, she just can't leave, I guess.
House arrest.
Yeah, house imprisonment. Bucky is scheduled to be extradited to Wakanda, but they want to, have a psychiatrist speak with him first. And here's where the espionage starts to come in. We get Daniel Bruhl in this movie as Baron Zemo. Great performance.
Zemo was cool.
One of the underrated MCU villains, if you ask me. I like him. I love his backstory. I love what he does for the movie. I like that he's not some like Palpatine, I love being evil, ha ha ha, Marvel villain.
Yeah,
he has a plan and it makes sense.
It's my favorite Marvel villain, like to date on screen, 100%.
If they ever end up doing like a Thunderbolts idea project kind of thing, I love the idea of him returning.
Yeah, I think he's coming back for one of the Disney Plus shows.
They'd have to find a new motivation or something for him, I think, because he kind of wins in this movie a little bit. This is kind of I hope you've seen the movie if you're watching this, because we will talk about Spider-Man, I promise, eventually. But in a way, Zemo kind of wins at the end of this movie. He doesn't completely and utterly cripple the Avengers forever, but he saws a gap here that is hard to that literally took the Thanos incident and 5 years of stuff after that to bridge. You know what I mean?
I think
he fucking won in a way.
I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with him in the Disney Plus show. I don't know if I'm even going to watch that show. I know I'm going to watch WandaVision because that looks fun.
Yeah, and it's probably going to be WandaVision's probably going to tie into the whole Doctor Strange thing.
Yeah, and I'm going to watch the Hawkeye show because that looks fun. It's based on the Matt Fraction run. But I feel like it'd be a challenge to do Falcon and the Winter Soldier and have Zemo have a good motivation. But we will see.
That is the trick. Zemo springs him. He sets off an EMP. He sends it in a crate to like the location of the power grid. He's a very like Dennis Reynolds-esque like villain in terms of how he gets so far ahead of his steps in the game. I don't know. I like Zemo a lot. He's smart.
He Amazon primes them an EMP.
Yeah, he gets it there at the time it needs to be. He kills a couple people, stays in a couple rooms. Good shit. Not quite Willem Dafoe, but here's our Spider-Man villain, technically. Or Captain America, the Spider-Man villain in this movie.
Oh my
God. One of them is. We get the a lot of good escape montage sequence shit that culminates with probably the most iconic scene in the movie, I would think, outside of the final fight is Cap like holding on to Bucky's helicopter,
showing off his big muscles.
Yeah, which Chris Evans completely separated his bicep doing that. So good job.
Yeah, he should get an Oscar for best bicep separation. New category.
MTV Movie Award for best bicep separation.
Just committed way too hard, which love the man for that, but wow.
Big beefy boy.
Mm-hmm.
Can we get a dude's rock in the chat?
Can we get a dude's rock in the chat?
Dudes absolutely rock.
Official dude's rock moment. So yeah, this scene kind of culminates there. They vice clamp Bucky's arm in like some warehouse somewhere and force him to remember himself, and we get some exposition from him about how there's the other super soldiers that he stole the Kool-Aid jammers from the car to make, and from there we segue. We get Tony Stark in New York City, of all places.
Tony and Natasha need backup to catch Captain America. And so Tony's like, I have an idea.
Tony's been on the YouTube lately and seen and seen some shit. We get young Peter Parker coming home, DVD player in hand from the public transit. Here's the thing. Now they're playing another like song that came out that year. What song is that? Is it an Alt J song or something?
Yeah, Left Hand Free by Alt J.
Yeah. It is so far removed from the contemporary music scene in an Amazing Spider-Man 2 that it makes me want to like scream. Like I feel like it's almost like, okay, how do we make a song? Let's put in a song that's not completely embarrassing and not have anything embarrassing happen. Done. You know what I mean?
All of the songs that they put in the MCU Spider-Man movies, they're not horribly tacky like the For You song in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
It's like they put in Flock of Seagulls, they put in the Ramones, they put in the Go-Go's.
I love
like
the
these
Ramones.
are like all good songs that people like.
Yeah, it just works to Todd Howard. It
just works.
It just works.
Tony travels to New York City. He's there when Peter gets home, talking to Aunt May on the couch, and Peter's kind of freaking out because Elon Musk is lying to his aunt in front of him about a scholarship he didn't apply for. They retreat to Peter's room for a minute, which is like, this was like 1 year prior to the movements and everything. I wouldn't let Elon Musk in a room with my teenage nephew, not even for 5 minutes, to talk about an internship. That's weird.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Iron Man says to this young boy, "Hey, I know you're the Spider-Man."
The crime-fighting spider, the Spiderling.
Spiderling.
I do have like a fuckload of bullet points because this is one of my favorite scenes. This is one of my favorite scenes in the whole MCU, just in general. I fucking love this scene. I'm just gonna run down them because I want to. And it's my podcast, goddammit.
The floor is yours.
I love that we immediately open with just Peter bringing back shit from the dump. I think that's fun.
It's a very in-character thing to do, yeah.
Yes. I love that if you watch, Peter has 3 different apartments in the MCU, and you realize that they sort of get just progressively smaller and smaller, which I think is fun. And if you notice in this one seems suspiciously large just for 2 people to live in.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. There's like a couch and 2 chairs. I'm like,
It definitely, listen, I don't know the New York all that well, but it definitely seemed very upscale from just that opening shot. Which was then a funny kind of juxtaposition to, oh yeah, we need money for those grants. Oh right.
Maybe there's like they're living in like big like housing towers.
Yeah.
And rent is super fucking high in New York.
Yeah, I know. It's like that's $1 million apartment.
May got her hours cut at the job factory.
May got her hours, and you know Ben's fucking dead, so you can't pay for that shit. So they moved out, and then they moved out again.
Yeah.
I like that Peter immediately asks if the grant has money involved. He's like, "Please give me money, please."
Yeah, I need money for science.
And then to catch up to where you are, I like that Peter is like immediately like, "That's all fake, right? You know that it's not real." I just like that he's trying to bullshit his way out of Spider-Man.
He's like, I can lie to boomers. That's legal.
He's not wearing the mask, so his bullshitting is not at its highest level.
Mm-hmm.
It's a charisma buff, I guess.
Oh yeah, and I love that Peter named himself Spider-Man, because like in the comics and in the movies, they don't do it a whole lot, but yeah, Peter just named himself Spider-Man, which I like as like a 15-year-old kid just trying to be a cool guy. He's like, yeah, I'm Spider-Man. I like that.
Yeah, no Bruce Campbell here. Probably like directly inspired in this universe by Iron Man. Or
that makes sense.
That's the thing.
So,
I like that.
So it makes sense in the context, I guess. But yeah, we get our brief conversation from them. He convinces that Spider-Man to come with him to Berlin, solely under the promise that he doesn't tell Aunt May. Which this is like Iron Man. He easily could have made that promise and walked out and be like, "Hey, I'm taking the kid to Berlin to fight Captain America." You know, like fucking. Yeah. He easily could have done that, but he didn't.
This whole scene is really. I'm sorry. I just have more stuff to talk about in this scene.
No, that's what we're here to do, my friend.
Because this is the Spider-Man scene. I love that they do the origin, but it's really understated. And they don't make it super forced. I'm gonna put in that audio of his line, like explaining why he's doing what he does.
Yeah, I had that written down because that's an amazing line.
Why are you doing this? I gotta know, what's your MO? What gets you out of that twin bed in the morning?
Because I've been me my whole life, and I've had these powers for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I read books, I build computers. And yeah, I would love to play football, but I couldn't then, so I shouldn't now.
Sure, because you're different.
Exactly. But I can't tell anybody that, so I'm not. Look, when you can do the things that I can, but you don't, and then the bad things happen, they happen because of you.
Because in the last movie, in Amazing Spider-Man 1, they have Uncle Ben, like, pussyfoot around saying, with great power comes great responsibility, which is weird for when Uncle Ben does it. But, like, it totally makes sense for Peter to do that, because he's had it for 6 months. I like that also, along with that, we have his spider sense, because he catches the web thing. We have him actually make the web fluid, which is cool.
Thank God.
None of it is horribly forced. This is just such a good scene. Love that they explain the moving eyes in his suit to like focus his senses. I think that's cool. Mm-hmm. I like that. I think there are a lot of people who would disagree with me, but I think Tony really was probably the best character to introduce Peter into these movies with. I think it's good because Tony in these movies, his driving motivation, especially in this movie, is also guilt, which is sort of Spider-Man's also driving motivation. And I think that having them introduced together is a good idea. And the last thing that I have is I like that Peter is already Spider-Man. He's been Spider-Man for 6 months. He's chilling out, having a good time. I'm definitely going to get into this more next week because I don't want to be on my I definitely don't want to be on my soapbox for too long. But
for sure.
Every time I hear the phrase Iron Man Jr., I pop a blood vessel because that is not what these movies are about.
Yeah, that's kind of even the whole point of Far From Home in a way. It's like
and Homecoming too.
How little are you watching? Really Homecoming, but even like more so. Homecoming is like standing out of the shadow, and Far From Home is stepping like beyond it.
Yes. At no time in any of these movies is Peter Parker Iron Man Jr. That is not the point of these movies. But people just for some reason believe that he is, because I guess it's cool to not like these movies.
People love being wrong, Lex.
It's a very weird position to take. And again, as like my first experience with Spider-Man, that wasn't what it read as at all. So I don't really know where that comes from for a lot of people.
Yeah, and then of course there's the people who are like, why don't they talk about Uncle Ben? And I'm like, they do. They do.
Yeah.
Well, they don't show him die, though.
I want to see an old man die in front of my face.
It's really important. And I mean, again, just in pacing in the movie overall, with the whole thing with Tony's parents and stuff, I'm like, it's too much. It would be way too much, you know? And also, you don't need that. You definitely infer that. If you know Spider-Man, then you fucking know what's going on. If you don't know Spider-Man, then you know enough about this kid. And the way they structured his setup here, again, I've never had any great attachment to him, but just coming in and how sharp he was in terms of understanding what's going on. And that line, you know, when you do things about it and you don't, that's such a great way to kind of segue into a better version of a lot of the kind of teen superheroes they have along. And especially having him in juxtaposition with Wanda, who's like around the same age as him.
Or supposed to be.
Yeah, well, allegedly.
Peter's like 15 in this movie, and Wanda, I don't even know how fucking old Wanda's supposed to be.
Wanda's supposed to be like 18 or something around there. They're supposed to be closer to.
Sure.
Yeah, she's like 37, but it's fine. But definitely having him going, you know, yeah, I'm going to do something about it because I can, and because, you know, it's my responsibility morally to do that.
Yeah, and that ties into Tony's arc in this movie, and it's subtlety. It's subtle.
It's subtlety. And then you have Wanda crying in her room because she made a mistake. And
these movies are good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's, I couldn't have said it better myself.
I'm off my soapbox.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Lex's soapbox minute is over. But yeah, that leads us kind of directly into our trailer shot, as I keep putting it. We have our airport sequence where we have War Machine, Black Widow, Black Panther, and Vision with standing with Captain America. Right? Is that full lineup?
Yes.
Or rather, with
they're with Iron Man.
With Iron Man, sorry. Yeah, I had my fucking columns inverted. I had all the right info under them. With the other side being with Spider-Man on that side as well. The other side being Captain America with Bucky, the Falcon, Hawkeye, Wanda, and Ant-Man, who, gotta say, I love Paul Rudd in this movie.
He's so much fun. He's a fun and cool guy.
Besides Spider-Man, the Ant-Man entries are probably my other favorite MCU movies.
The animated movies are good.
I'm really hoping that Taika Waititi can upstage Peyton Reed a little bit in my head, because I'm really looking forward to Love and Thunder. We'll see how that goes. I feel weird saying I'm looking forward to a Thor movie, but
I know it's a new experience.
For me, it goes Spider-Man, Ant-Man, and then specifically Ragnarok, and possibly, you know, future stuff in terms of like what I like out of these movies. Guardians of the Galaxy is really good too, but I like 2 a lot more than 1. That's a whole thing. Welcome to the MCU era of this podcast, everybody.
We're gonna talk about a lot of movies.
Yep.
Oh yeah. But yes, we have a veritable fucking action figure lineup of verses here. Peter specifically is told to keep his distance and subdue with webs.
And even still,
get in there and kill.
There's a whole bunch of people in this fight, but especially after Endgame, this fight just feels like really quaint. Like it's like six
Super
people
plain.
fighting in
Super
an airport.
plain.
Yeah.
It feels really small.
Well,
This
and
is the start of making that that round shot in the first Avengers, like where everybody's looking up and looking at shit, and that was supposed to be so big and so monumental that all these people were here. That starts to feel smaller by the minute with every single one of these movies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also pairs really well with. You can tell throughout the fight scene. This is just friends. They're just friends beating the shit out of each other, and it's everyone's
Yeah.
pulling their punches.
Having a good
You know
old
what I mean?
time.
Nobody is
yeah.
shooting to kill here.
It's completely non-lethal,
And then there's Peter, who doesn't understand what the fuck is going on, and he's just trying his best. He's giving it the good old college try.
He's doing his best. The moment of him trying to read his Miranda rights to Falcon as he's hitting him in the face, it's great. Peter has no idea what's happening, and it's.
We should talk about the costume.
We should talk about the costume.
Alex, would you have any thoughts about this costume?
I like the costume very much. I like it. I like that it pulls very much straight from the source material. One of the things that I'm the biggest fan of is the back of it. I think it's the closest we've gotten to the Tick in.
Oh, it's the Tick. They got the Tick
suit. It's. I like the Far From Home colors a little more myself. Mm-hmm. But with that said, the Homecoming / Civil War suit is great. I have a very, very, very small gripe with the fact that like they do plenty of show don't tell that this Peter is smart in this universe, but it's hard to do like have that hold hands with the fact that Iron Man gave him this like super suit.
Yeah.
But like you said, it ties into the whole he's not Iron Man Jr. thing.
This is really, I mean, this is really the only super huge thing that Tony does for Peter is just give him this suit. And I don't have a whole lot of complaints about it because this suit, I fucking love this costume. This is easily my favorite Spider-Man costume, I think, ever. It refines and updates the Romita design in so many just beautiful ways. The eyes look, they're literally perfect. They look exactly like they do in the comics, and I don't have a single problem with those. I really like the chest logo as well as the back logo. I really like geometric designs of stuff. So I really, really enjoy that chest logo that they have. It's like super geometric. I have a tattoo of this chest logo because I like it so much. But the colors are perfect. I like that the black bands are there, that they break up the colors and they tie into the exposed web shooters.
Love that.
I love the exposed web shooters. I love that in this movie, at least in the next movie, Peter runs out of webbing. Because like that never happens in any of the other. It doesn't happen in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. He runs out of webs. That's good. I like that.
It makes sense.
It makes sense. But yeah, I've seen people edit this costume on Instagram and like take away like the black bands and stuff.
No.
And make the logo look different.
No.
Try to make it look more comic accurate, and it just looks wrong.
No,
it just doesn't look right.
That's the thing. I have a huge gripe with comic accurate movie costumes. I think they mostly look fucking terrible. Again, because it's a totally different medium and it's a totally different scale of what you're trying to convey with the characters too. His costume looks amazing in this movie. I don't know the other ones, but I love this one.
And this costume, it is almost exactly the way that it looks in the comics, but it makes enough changes that it works on a human person moving around in physical space. Yeah,
and that's exactly it. It's like that works for him, and that's such a good way to do that in terms of the comics. Because if you look at, Captain America or anyone standing there, Captain America doesn't look like that in the comics. There's no way. His first suit was the comic one, and he looked like a clown. He was completely.
He looked like a silly little clown boy.
Oh my god!
I like that they gave him. They gave him the scale mail in Endgame. We'll talk about that later. For sure. They gave him the scale mail in Endgame, which finally they did that on his last movie. Yeah. They were finally confident enough to do the scale mail. But yeah, the whole Marvel design team who make all of these costumes, and I'm going to talk about it more in Homecoming. Talk about it more in Far From Home when he gets a new costume, and when we talk about Mysterio, my king. But they do a really good job with this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful suit. Love the suit. Not personally my favorite. I think technically speaking, I think the ASM2 one is the best, and the Raimi is my favorite. But I love these suits. Very
good,
comic accurate, and in a lot of great regards. I'm a big sucker for the Far From Home suit, but we'll get there. We'll get there. The fight ends after a good amount of it happening. We get a great I like the dialogue between Captain America and Spider-Man, the whole New York banter.
The quips in this movie are so good. And Spider Sense is actually used really well.
Yeah,
like there's really that scene where he's getting like something coming from behind him, and his eyes just widen. And he's like, "Oh shit!"
And he says something about a second before Scott triggers the. So maybe he senses something going on with the particles. I don't know.
Yeah, and just because there's not like a Matrix 360 slow motion, people are like, he doesn't have spider sense in these movies. Like, yes, he does. You fucking morons.
Again, it's the inference of it. You know,
you have to use your brain.
Yep.
Nat does some real quick turncoat shit and stuns Black Panther and gives the opportunity to Captain America and Bucky to escape. Meanwhile, while they escape, Vision tries to incapacitate. Does he try to incapacitate Falcon, but he hits Rhodey? Is that what it is?
Yes, he tries to incapacitate Falcon.
Yeah, so Red says fire, and he gets fired on himself, gets his arc reactor popped out, and thuds right into the ground. I'm such a bad person, but that sound makes me laugh every time I hear it.
It is pretty funny.
It's a pretty funny sound design choice. He's not dead, but he is fucked up. So it's very somber, very very sad moment. But after hearing and being presented with evidence that Bucky was framed and it was prosthesis and stuff, Tony ventures to the raft. I think it was fun to see the raft in this movie, which predominantly I associate with Spider-Man in my head. I think. They send a lot of fucking people in Spider-Man to the raft for him being a New York, neighborhood staple. Tony, shares this with the prisoners, does some fudging of the cameras and microphones and stuff to do so. Zemo is, implicated in everything. Sam gives him the info he needs to find Captain America and Bucky, and he attempts to go do so. He attempts to go to Siberia to make peace. In a very un-Iron Man twist of events.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this right now. I think this whole finale is actually pretty good.
Yeah, this is the most solid part of the movie. To at this point, pre-Endgame, this was the longest MCU movie, and I was feeling it watching it.
Yeah, it's a long.
But the third act is very, very, very good. Tony does track Captain America and Bucky to the location in Siberia where they all believe super soldiers are going to be found, and they're already dead. Zemo beat them there and killed them all in their sleep.
Yeah, they have this like super big setup of like there's other Winter Soldiers, and then they go nowhere. I mean, I get why they exist. It's just to Zemo to bring them here, but it's just like it's kind of weird.
It wasn't a bluff. If Hydra had gotten a hold of these things, they might have been fucked pre-Thanos. You know what I mean? Like, the one Bucky is something. 5 Buckies with no personal attachment to Cap, that's a nightmare. It could have been bad shit. But yeah, no, Zemo just capped them all in the face, it looked like, while they were sleeping, and he literally just brought them here. He's like, hey, yeah, no, fuck you, you're idiots. I brought you here so I could show you this fun video from 1991, Tony. And Tony learns the truth about how his parents died. Bucky was still under the control of Hydra and acting as their agent. He killed Iron Man's parents to acquire that super soldier serum.
To acquire the Capri Sun.
Mm-hmm. Tony, of course, loses his shit because he's Tony Stark, and we get just a great fight sequence. Cap and Tony in full breakup mode. It moves around a lot. They do a whole lot of back and forthing, one-on-ones with each other, and then eventually it starts moving up through like a missile silo. It's really good stuff all around. This is the choreography I was talking about, where like the shield stuff really shines. But yeah, I don't have a whole lot of complaints about the sequence. It feels like it feels comic booky and not in a kitschy way. It feels like a climax.
No, it definitely feels like one of the most real fight scenes of
For
any
sure.
of the
It's
MCU.
good.
As
It's
real as
definitely one
this-
of my favorites. I think it's shot much better than a lot of them.
Yeah, cinematography is really important in it.
And I think playing it directly after because the airport fight scene is great, but again, they're pulling their punches and stuff, and it's very much
But this is like these motherfuckers want to kill each other.
Yeah, like they get into, and that's the thing. So much of the MCU, everyone's trying to be non-lethal, even when they're getting the bad guy. And
Well,
stuff.
I don't know if they're trying to be non-lethal.
Well, I think it's that very interesting superhero thing of like, oh, I didn't kill anyone. I definitely hit him 9 times in the head with a carbon fiber rod, but I didn't kill him.
The only Marvel superhero in these movies I can say is non-lethal is Spider-Man.
Is Spider-Man, and that's the thing. Which is great, but yeah, that last fight scene, they are like, no, everyone's gonna die down here. Fuck it. Which is a really great tonal shift, I find.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We get quite a bit of fighting, quite a bit of dialoguing back and forth, and it ends pretty brutally for one of these movies anyway, with the arc reactor being like smashed in Tony's chest.
Yeah.
And Bucky getting his vibranium arm blown off. Or was that vibranium, or
I have no clue.
That was not vibranium.
It was some kind of metal, but yeah, he gets a vibranium.
Some kind of metal, whatever.
That was
some
just
bullshit.
Imported Russian steel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this is at the same time when Black Panther shows up to confront Zemo.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Tony loses hard. I'll get to the Zemo scene in just a second. I think this happens like just before it, but
of course,
Cap and Bucky are like limping out, and Tony claims that Steve doesn't deserve the shield, and he leaves it behind, which is very very basic like visual metaphor storytelling, but it works for this movie. That's what this movie is the Empire Strikes Back of this franchise.
Correct.
Not in terms of quality, but in terms of what happens in it. The band breaks up a little bit. But yeah, I like that scene a lot. The fight scene, the dropping of the shield, and then we get Zemo, hanging out on a cliff, not gloating that he won, but just still that he won, and he's still depressed and
listening to a voicemail from his wife, which is good.
Mm-hmm. Deletes it too. We see him delete it.
Fuck.
He knows he's either he's got the gun in his hand. He doesn't know he's about to go to jail. He knows it's over one way or another. But Black Panther steps in with those fucking bulletproof hands and blocks the bullet and says, "Psych, bitch, you're going to jail. We need you in a TV show in 5 years, motherfucker."
Vengeance has consumed you. It's consuming them. I'm done letting it consume me. Justice will come soon enough.
Tell that to the dead.
The living are not done with you yet.
Yeah, the living are not done with you yet is like raw. Love that shit.
But yeah, that's like a really good scene.
It's Spider-Man level like territory. He wanted to find his father's killer and got him in the street so bad, and now he's got the guy that really did it in front of him, and he's not going to do it.
Yeah.
He didn't hunt down a bunch of criminals that looked just like him to get to this point. So again, Sony, take notes.
Take notes.
Please.
But yeah, it's a very poignant scene. He wins, but he doesn't get what he wants. Zemo, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We get shots of Rhodey recovering. He's in his his Tesla walking suit or whatever. Steve breaks his comrades out of the raft right before we get our little credit sequences and everything of Bucky getting. I had it written crossed out. Bucky gets put down. I crossed it out. Bucky gets put to sleep for now.
There are 2 post credits. He gets put down like Old Yeller.
They took him out behind the barn.
No, they're giving him the COVID vaccine. No.
Oh,
Take him to Wakanda to give him the COVID vaccine.
Our final, yeah, they had it 5 years in advance before there was COVID. And we get our final credits sequence of the movie with Peter recovering at home from his injuries sustained in battle, trying out his new web shooter Spidey signal at the ceiling, and that is Captain America: The Civil War.
I'm going to talk about this more in Homecoming, but I really like Marissa Tomei's Aunt May. I think she's fun.
Yeah, I think I'll save just about all of my thoughts on that matter for that movie, but I like the casting. I don't mind that she's a little on the younger side for an Aunt May portrayal, but she brings a freshness to the role. I think that there has needed to be. Sally Field didn't really explore the character at all. She just knew things that Peter needed.
I'll save most of my stuff for the Homecoming episode.
Anything Aunt May did in the duology could have been a Bing search. That's all I have to say.
Fucking Bing. It's always Bing.
It's true.
Alex, do you have any fun facts here for us?
I have a handful, yes. A lot, and I mean a lot of the trivia of this movie is mired in the fact that it is essentially kind of the first crossover movie of these that wasn't an Avengers movie. So there's only little bits and pieces about Spider-Man stuff here, but there is, there's a good bit. It kind of goes without saying, but Tom Holland was the youngest portrayal of a Peter Parker or Spider-Man at this point. I attribute a lot of the success that the character has found so far to the fact that they finally have decided, okay, we're going to stay in this era of his life, not only for a bit, but for all of what we've seen so far, instead of having him graduate high school a half hour or a movie and a half in.
Yeah, they pick a good actor who is young.
Absolutely. They could have done a lot worse with that, but it is what it is. Here he is. We're going to get some high school stories for a while, and that leads, we could get better college stories in the future because of this too. While making audition tapes to audition for the role, Tom Holland was doing, he was in a production called Pilgrimage with John Bernthal. So together, they made audition tapes for their roles of Peter Parker and Frank Castle, like that they filmed alongside each other.
Dude's rock.
Dude's fucking rock.
I know, King. I know you're a big fan of the Punisher show.
Huge fan.
I've not seen the Punisher show or the Daredevil show, but I have the Daredevil show highly recommended to me by many people, including Lex.
Daredevil comes.
Yes. Daredevil first, though.
I hope so.
It's so good.
I say this having seen Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. So,
you see Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, but not Daredevil?
I know.
Punisher?
Crucify me. I know,
brother.
I know. That'll be next year. We do a Daredevil podcast.
There has been so many rumors about the third Spider-Man movie, but I genuinely, honestly hope that Daredevil is in it.
And I say this as a person who loves Daredevil in the comics. I love the Marvel Knights kind of stuff. I love Daredevil and Spider-Man team-ups. Fuck it. I'd rather see Charlie Cox's Daredevil with the Spider-Man than I would see Deadpool with the Spider-Man.
Oh, without a doubt.
Fuck Deadpool. Let's get fucking Daredevil in here. Did you have any alternative castings for Spider-Man?
I didn't specifically find any on the places I look at them this time, but I could easily find that out. I meant to do that while I was at work, and then I didn't. So
I think the only one I know is that it was down when they got it down to two actors. It was either Tom Holland or Asa Butterfield, who is.
Yeah, I remember that. I think Ansel Elgort was also up for the role.
Ugh.
Yeah, no.
It's a big no on Ansel Elgort or Asa Butterfield. Asa Butterfield just something about him. He literally looks like Review Bra. He looks like Review Report of the Week.
He kind of looks like he got hit in the head, and I'm not a huge fan. Tom Holland was definitely the choice.
I definitely saw a few things that mentioned Chandler Riggs as a possible Spider-Man.
The fuck is Chandler Riggs?
He played Carl on The Walking Dead.
Big no.
I also know for a fact at one point Timothy Chalamet was considered. And
I've said this before, Timothy Chalamet would be a good Harry Osborn, but I think they made the right choice.
Yeah, he's not a Spider-Man. He's not a Peter Parker for sure.
No.
I don't know how they would have to put nerd prosthetics on him. It would not work, is the thing.
They have to give him buck teeth and a lisp.
Handsome. He's too pretty. He's Victorian pretty. It wouldn't work.
That's why he would be a good Harry Osborn.
Absolutely. Exactly. I do agree. Like I mentioned earlier, Marissa Tomei was in her 50s during this portrayal. Rosemary Harris was in her 70s and Sally Field in her 60s. So when we get our next Spider-Man reboot, Aunt May has to be in her 40s to have the trend here. She's getting progressively younger.
I'm not as horribly against the idea of Aunt May being younger, because I feel like it's kind of weird in the original comics that it's his aunt and uncle when it's very obviously supposed to be his grandparents.
Yeah.
But they're like, yeah, aunt and uncle. And also it gives me a sort of another, this is a weird thing that's like a headcanon, I guess. I hate that word. But I just like the idea of Aunt May and Uncle Ben being like the younger couple compared to Peter's parents.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of like a sort of, there's sort of like vaguely inexperience with raising a child. I just like that idea.
Yeah, that it's not something they're good at. That was Mary and Richard's bag.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I know we compared Ditko as or used Ditko as one of the sources either. I wanted to go out of my way and mention John Romita Sr. as well. Yeah, I think as far as the artists go, I think Bagley. I'm a big sucker for the Del McFarlane shit. Yeah, but I like Bagley a lot. But then again, Ultimate was very formative for me in terms of reading these comics, so take that with a grain of salt. Aside from that, I like Romita Jr. and I like Romita Sr.
Romita Jr. and Sr. are both good.
But Sr., it's just classic. I think that's some of the most classic look of it, and I'm glad to see that. That's kind of reflected in the outfit a little bit. The Ditko stuff is a little stronger, but there is some.
Here, let me actually. While I'm talking about it, I actually have the art book of Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Wow.
And let me talk about this real quick. Let me find the outro of it. Yeah, this is an excerpt from the afterword of the Spider-Man: Homecoming art book. It's by Brian Meinerding, who did most of the concept art for Peter in the MCU, which is, I love with a capital L the licensing art John Romita Sr. did for Spidey. All of those poses are burned into my skull, and the head design is perfect. It was so solidly drawn, even with the flourishes in the eyes that most artists don't try to replicate. To me, that Spider-Man head is the logo of Marvel as much as Mickey Mouse's is Disney's. The other elements I love from Mr. Romita's Spidey are the small spider on the chest and the simple web design throughout the body. It feels like an innocent version of Spider-Man, one perfect for a younger Peter Parker. I think that's a really good and succinct way of putting it.
Yeah, that puts it in better terms than I ever could.
Ryan Meinerding did a bunch of artwork where he pretty much just made versions of the Romita artwork, but just put that suit for Peter in it. It looks perfect.
That's great. I need to look into this book.
It's good.
One of my favorite bits of trivia about this movie specifically, as I've mentioned in the past, I love Spider-Man, but probably my favorite character in the greater Spider-Verse outside of Peter is Ben Reilly. I know a lot of people don't love the Clone Saga stuff. I do. Ben Reilly specifically, I love the character of, and his outfit is color-wise an inverse of the Spider-Man like pajama suit in this movie. The hoodie and the arms, like the colors are swapped. So I feel like it's a deliberate reference, but it
is because in the book they have like all the different looks that they were thinking of for the homemade suit, and one of them was pretty much the Scarlet Spider outfit.
Yeah, I love the Scarlet Spider.
And when they were looking at, I know I'm going off the rails here. But when they were looking at the final design for the Homecoming suit, one of them, which was sort of like a concept, was basically just his Ben Reilly suit that he wears when he fully becomes Spider-Man, Sensational Spider-Man. That Ben Reilly suit is one of my favorite Spider-Man suits. It's the MCU suit, it's the Homecoming suit, and the Ben Reilly suit. Those are my two favorites. I fucking love both of those suits.
Absolutely, hard agree. I personally am dubious about this being a genuine piece of trivia, but it's worth noting that two of the keywords in the weird little sleeper cell phrasing they do for Bucky are homecoming and 17. Some people have taken that as a reference to Spider-Man Homecoming coming out in 2017, the next year. It's a bit of a stretch for me. If a writer
said Homecoming, but not the 17.
If a writer said, yeah, that's the intention, then yeah, I'd believe it. But
yeah, that seems a little far-fetched, but yeah.
Yes, I do have. I've been kind of subconsciously background looking here. I do have a handful of other Spider-Man I did not mention that aren't Ansel Elgort. Not too many sex weirdos in this podcast. Don't worry.
No, we already got to our sex weirdos in the last episode.
Unfortunately, so. Judah Lewis, who I have no idea who that is.
How do you spell that?
Judah, Juddah, Lewis, Lewis. Oh, he was in that Christmas. Oh, he's in the he was in the Babysitter. Oh, okay.
That's a big no.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, pass.
No.
Super pass. Matt Lintz, who was another kid on The Walking Dead, and he was in
also,
Pixels.
No.
Yeah,
Also,
what the fuck?
yeah,
These all look like the most generic white boys possible.
and Charlie Plummer, who was in a John Green adaptation, Cloverfield Killer. No, yeah,
God.
Tom Holland seems like the strong pick here.
No, yeah. Like they had like the most generic white boys possible, and they picked the one good one.
Yeah, it says also Dylan O'Brien. Yeah, super pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely not.
No,
I don't see how there's any room to complain about him. He's
they really secured the bag on that one.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that would wrap up my trivia. Except for the fact, nope, I have one last one here. I wanted to know.
Surprise!
This is, if I'm not mistaken, outside of Endgame, which has every actor in Hollywood in it. This film was at the time the most like Oscar drip worthy. It had 3 Oscar winners in it: Marisa Tomei, William Hurt, and Jim Rash, and 4 nominees with Robert Downey Jr., Don Cheadle, Jeremy Renner, and Alfre Woodard is the name of the actress we couldn't name earlier that said "Fuck you, Iron Man, I hate you."
Oh, okay.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah, Alfre Woodard, who is this is fucking talented people in this movie, in this Civil War movie.
Civil War.
And not even the kind of Civil War movie you would expect, like to be in the headlines. It's just like
It's true.
It's just like too, but
I guess you're right. All right. I guess let's go into the ratings and the rankings. Let's open, I guess, with King. What is your rating for this movie? And I guess where would you rank it? You wouldn't really know where to put it from the movies we've covered.
Yeah. It's like a solid 3.5 for me. I really liked it. There was a lot of storytelling stuff that, not on the Spider-Man half, but on the other side of things, I have a lot of gripes with how they did characters and storytelling. But overall, it's a really visually stunning movie in terms of so many of the shots, especially on the back half, which I think is just amazing. But
Who are you mad about that they mischaracterized?
Black Widow is terrible in this movie. She is abysmally bad in this movie. A few of the other ones, there's just a lot of like weird character beats. Iron Man, I get what they were going for, but some of the guilt trippy stuff I find is a little overdone. Captain America is also great, but I think they played him a little stupider than maybe they should have. There was a lot of moments. There was just a lot of moments, especially when Tony's trying to explain things to him, and he's just like, "Yeah, I'm not listening. I don't care, and I'm not listening." And it's like, yeah, I get that. It's your friend, and I get that, but I don't care isn't really the response here, especially given build up of Winter Soldier and everything like that. But overall, yeah, 3.5, just because I think it was a really, really good, especially for an MCU movie. It's really, really good. It's definitely one of my top MCU movies in my own personal rankings.
And you, of course, don't have to rank it since you don't know any of the other movies.
It's my favorite Spider-Man movie.
I would think this should be at the top then, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I guess I'll go. I think, really, beyond Spider-Man and Black Panther, I am pretty ambivalent on this one. It is a perfectly fine Marvel movie that just happens to contain one of the best scenes in the MCU and the introduction of my preferred flavor of Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to give it just a nice solid 3 stars. And I might put it just maybe a hair above Spider-Man 3. Just because this movie didn't make me want to claw my eyes out as much as sections of Spider-Man 3 did. So for my current ranking, it's Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, Civil War, Spider-Man 3, The Amazing Spider-Man 1, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Alex?
Yes. Well, generally speaking, I feel like I'm somewhere in the middle between you and King's analysis here. I like the movie a lot. I think it's one of the better early MCU beginning of the crossover entries. a few of these movies stand out like from their predecessors, like sequel-wise to me. I think Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Thor Ragnarok are probably some of my best examples of that, like I mentioned earlier. I like this movie a lot, but I don't love the parts of it that like would make it feel more whole and complete. I think the third act is what saves this movie from being just like average in my head. The airport scene is great and everything. The Spider-Man introduction is great, and that's what we're here for today. But specifically, I think the last segment of the movie is the best part of it, and it's like not even close. It's like gold versus bronze medal discussion. Like that fight sequence at the end, everything they do with Zemo, it works, and I like it a lot.
Good. Without a doubt,
your climax working, especially in a Captain America movie, is important because the first one, it feels so campy and so goofy to me, and the second one I didn't actually see until my rewatch earlier this year. So, speaking franchise-wise, I've never been like in love with the Captain America movies myself, but this one I like a lot. I like it the most out of any of the three of them. I'd probably go with a 3.0 out of 5 on this. I was thinking a 3.5 earlier, but I really think, like I mentioned earlier, it's not to say that anything is too weak in this movie, but the third act really, I feel like if they shaved a little bit of how good it was off and sprinkled it over the first 2/3 of this movie, I'd feel a little more positively about it. But that's how I feel, which makes my final ranking. I am going to agree with you, Lex, that for as the good meme value and as fun as the fun we have talking about it, this is a better movie than than Spider-Man 3. This is my ranking would be Raimi 2, Raimi 1, Civil War, Raimi 3, then the duology 1 and 2. So still a little bit the same, close to yours, but I still consider 2 to be the better to 1 is my difference there so far still.
Yeah.
But that's that for
me. Yeah. All right. That's our show. Thank you so much for listening. If you got a question or a comment that you want us to read on next week's episode, be sure to send it to us at our email address, spideysignalspodcast@gmail.com. Or you can shoot us a DM on our Twitter, @SpideySignals. Next week, we're going to cover Spider-Man Homecoming. So until then, stay responsible. Bye.
Merry Christmas, one and all.
Merry Christmas.
Stay frosty.
Oh, Spidey bells swinging through Midtown. Oh, what fun to sling a web and take the bad guys down. Spidey bells, quipping all the time. Oh, what fun to swing around New York while fighting crime. Whipping through the streets of New York every night.